In December 2025, the club that owns one of the oldest football stadiums on the planet came within 3 weeks of a winding up order that could have pushed it into administration. What made that moment even more remarkable was that less than a decade earlier, Sheffield United had unveiled the biggest redevelopment in Bramall Lane's 170-year history. The project promised a huge new South Stand, thousands of extra seats, modern hospitality facilities, and a stadium designed to compete with the Premier League's biggest clubs. The plans were approved, and construction seemed only a matter of time, but it never happened. Over the years, Sheffield United became embroiled in a bitter ownership battle, returned to the Premier League, suffered one of the worst relegation campaigns in the club's history, and watched construction costs soar. Through all of it, the redevelopment never moved beyond the planning stage. So what really happened? How did one of football's oldest stadiums end up with an approved expansion that remained untouched for almost 8 years? This is the story of Bramall Lane, a stadium that helped shape football's past, but is still fighting for its future. Bramall Lane began life in 1855 as a cricket ground, more than 3 decades before Sheffield United even existed. Football arrived in 1862, and the stadium quickly became one of the sport's earliest landmarks. It hosted the Uden Cup final in 1867, widely regarded as football's first organized knockout tournament, before staging the world's first floodlit football match in 1878. When Sheffield United were founded in 1889, Bramall Lane became their permanent home. Over the next century, it survived wartime bombing, welcomed a record crowd of 68,287 in 1936, and eventually became an all-seater stadium during the 1990s. More than 170 years after opening its gates, it remains one of the oldest professional football stadiums still in regular use anywhere in the world. But history alone doesn't guarantee a successful future. The move to an all-seater stadium reduced Bramall Lane's capacity to just over 32,050, leaving Sheffield United with one of the smaller stadiums in English football's top 2 divisions. That disadvantage became impossible to ignore when the Blades returned to the Premier League in 2019 after a 12-year absence. While rivals welcomed 50,000 or even 60,000 supporters every weekend, Sheffield United were trying to compete with far fewer seats and significantly lower matchday income. The problem wasn't simply the size of the crowd, it was how much money each supporter generated. During their most recent Premier League campaign, Sheffield United averaged close to 30,000 fans per home game, yet earned just £20 in matchday revenue per paying supporter, among the lowest figures in the division. Bramall Lane lacked the executive boxes, premium seating, and hospitality facilities that had become essential for modern Premier League clubs. Although the stadium received gradual upgrades over the years, including improved floodlights and digital advertising boards, those improvements were never enough to close the financial gap. It became increasingly clear that Bramall Lane needed something much bigger. As those ambitions began to grow, the club was hit by a bitter ownership dispute. In 2013, longtime owner Kevin McCabe sold a 50% stake to Saudi businessman Prince Abdullah bin Mosaid, hoping fresh investment would help Sheffield United move forward. Instead, the partnership collapsed into a high court battle over funding and control. After almost 2 years of legal proceedings, a judge ruled in 2019 that McCabe must sell his remaining stake for just £5 million, handing Prince Abdullah full ownership of the club, Bramall Lane, and its training ground. Yet even before that legal battle had been settled, Sheffield United were already planning Bramall Lane's biggest transformation in decades. In December 2017, the club unveiled ambitious proposals to redevelop the stadium rather than leave it behind, making it clear that one of football's oldest grounds still had a future. The plans promised to modernize Bramall Lane while preserving the history that made it unique, but turning that vision into reality would prove far more difficult than anyone expected. The proposed South Stand extension would add more than 5,400 seats, pushing Bramall Lane's capacity to around 38,000. If the separate Kop expansion goes ahead alongside it, the stadium could eventually pass 40,000, a number that once even fed into talk of the ground hosting matches if England's World Cup bid had succeeded. The centerpiece is the South Stand, where architects Whittam Cox have designed a second tier that would tower over the rest of the ground, instantly becoming the tallest structure at Bramall Lane. Once finished, that single stand would hold close to 14,000 seats on its own, roughly 44% of the stadium's entire current capacity. From outside, 4 rounded columns hide the staircases, while huge glass panels flood the main entrance and a triple-height conference space behind it with natural light. The brick and glass exterior is designed to blend with the surrounding city center buildings, and the exposed metal supporting the new cantilevered roof is described by the architects as a deliberate nod, a celebration, as they put it, of Sheffield's steelmaking history. Step inside and the new tier is built for far more than just watching football. There would be over 500 executive seats, 450 seats reserved for press, and 78 spaces for wheelchair users, plus a brand new media center, extra food and drink kiosks, a multi-purpose function room, and an exhibition space dedicated to the club's history. Not everything grows though. The Cherry Street car park, which currently fits 310 cars, would actually shrink slightly, reconfigured into a 2-level structure holding closer to 250. Here's where the story gets genuinely strange. These South Stand plans were approved back in 2018. Years later, not a single brick has been laid. And for a long stretch, the holdup had nothing to do with planning permission at all. It was the club tearing itself apart from the inside. Once Prince Abdullah finally won full control in 2019, redevelopment stalled again because a financial settlement with former co-owner Kevin McCabe still hadn't been sorted out. Then, in 2021, things turned almost bizarre when mysterious coming soon posters suddenly appeared plastered across the stadium's outer walls. They'd been put there by McCabe's own property company, and understandably, panicked fans started wondering whether outside development was about to swallow up the very land set aside for their new stand. Right next door sits an even odder footnote in this saga. A hotel built into the corner of the South Stand back in 2008 stood completely empty and boarded up for years after 2020, vandalized, its windows smashed, promised to reopen under new management that somehow never quite showed up. And inside the ground, there's still an old problem no blueprint has fixed yet. Persistent standing on the cop has become its own quiet headache, with the club reportedly spending an extra £3,000 on stewarding every single match day just trying to manage it. It's a small cost on paper, but it captures the bigger picture perfectly. Bramall Lane isn't short on ambition, blueprints, or history. It's just still waiting for someone to finally pick up a shovel. Sheffield United's own chief executive has admitted the club isn't even close to needing the extra seats sitting in those blueprints. Stephen Bettis put it bluntly when he said the priority has to be getting things right on the pitch first, because Bramall Lane isn't currently being filled as it is. That admission isn't just corporate caution. Sheffield United crashed out of the Premier League in 2023-24, finishing rock bottom with only 16 points while conceding a club record 104 goals. It was a collapse so severe that talk of a 40,000-seat stadium suddenly felt a long way from reality. That relegation triggered the club's biggest financial lifeline, parachute payments worth roughly £49 million in the first year alone. Designed to soften the financial hit of leaving the Premier League, those payments are now entering their final season, meaning Sheffield United's budget is set to shrink dramatically, regardless of what happens on the pitch. Ownership hasn't stood still either. Prince Abdullah, who became Sheffield United's sole owner in 2019, sold the club to American consortium COH Sports in December 2024, led by Steve Rosen and Helmi Eltaki. It should have marked a fresh start. Instead, less than a year later, Prince Abdullah's lawyers issued a statutory demand, claiming the new owners still owed £10 million, creating yet another period of uncertainty around the club's future. The stadium project itself has quietly drifted into a different era. When the South Stand plans were approved in 2018, construction was expected to begin once funding and ownership issues were resolved. More than 8 years later, work has still not started. Neither the club nor its architects have ever published an official budget for the redevelopment, unusual for a project of this scale. Since then, construction costs across the UK have risen sharply because of higher material and labor prices, meaning a stand that looked affordable on paper in 2018 would almost certainly cost far more to build today. New profit and sustainability rules arriving for the 2026 to 27 season will only make funding such a project even more difficult. There has still been progress, just the quieter kind. In 2024, Sheffield United bought back 2 plots of land bordering Bramall Lane that had remained outside the club's full control, finally bringing the entire stadium site under one ownership. The club has also introduced safe standing on the Kop, delivering a quicker and far cheaper improvement, while the larger redevelopment remains on hold. So the vision for Bramall Lane hasn't disappeared. It's simply been buried beneath relegation, ownership upheaval, rising construction costs, and financial reality. The blueprints still exist, the land is finally under the club's control, and the ambition remains. But until Sheffield United are back on stable financial footing, the biggest redevelopment in Bramall Lane's history will remain exactly that, a blueprint waiting to become reality. So what do you think? Should Sheffield United push ahead with the South Stand and Kop expansion now, or wait until the club is back on solid footing before spending a single pound? Let me know in the comments, and if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe for more football stadium stories.